Hey guys, Sylvan here. Today we're going to learn how to do burrows at various levels for the RuneScape idiot. This guide will teach you how to farm burrows at a low, medium and high level. It may seem tough to get into, but I promise it's quite simple and you'll learn it pretty fast. You may also notice I have another burrows video out there from years ago. This is vastly different to that and it covers everything more concisely and in greater detail. That video is also out of date, so I highly recommend you use this one instead. This video will include requirements, including gear, how to get there, the overall strategy, and some tips to make your trips easier. There will also be a bonus unlisted video in the description showing a burrows run from start to finish for those of you who need a visual example from start to finish. As we get into gear, I've actually done some further min-maxing calculations for you. You can change stuff up, downgrade, or pick things you believe to be better, and that's totally fine, you'll probably be fine. But I've seen a lot of sources online say that you have to have better than -40 or -35 magic bonus. But in my own calculation, there's actually a steep drop off of your DPS when you go past -30 magic bonus. I'll explain why the negative bonus is acceptable at burrows a bit later, but try to keep more than -30 magic attack. The other major breakpoint I found is around 9 prayer bonus. It is better to have more, but the equipment pieces you'd have to equip may sacrifice defense too much, and it won't be worth it in the end. To do burrows, you'll need to complete Priest in Peril, the Restless Ghost, and have started Nature's Spirit. These quests have very minimal requirements and are very quick and simple. Note that quests like Underground Pass, Horror from the Deep, and Lost City will give you much better gear to make your runs faster. I'm going to break the requirements into 4 sets. The minimum low level setup, the recommended low level setup, a recommended medium level setup, and a recommended high level setup. First off, I've tried to make a very bare bones setup to do burrows with minimum costs. You won't even need any range level for this setup. And if safe spotting, you won't need to use as many prayer potions either. I'll go through that later as well. You can swap out the Book of Balance with another book you may have. I've just picked the cheapest useful one. Or a Brutus Shield, which is surprisingly useful for lower levels as they give a magic, prayer, and defense bonus. And if you don't want to do Horror from the Deep, they're quite cheap at only 4k. For your food and potions, I'd recommend taking 5 to 6 prayer potions, 1 super attack, 1 super strength, 1 restore, and 1 stamina. The Rune Kite will be there to boost your defense in the tunnels to reduce how much damage you take from the minions, and the Mystic Boots keep you above -30 magic bonus. I'd also recommend taking a special attack weapon to use on Kirill or Arim if you have one. Now let's go through the recommended low level requirements. This setup uses range as well, so it's quite a bit faster. I definitely recommend using rune arrows at an absolute minimum, as you're going to be using them against Arim, and he has pretty high defense anyway. The Neatsnot Helm is absolutely amazing as well, as it doesn't have negative bonuses and gives you prayer too. It has a similar inventory to the last one, and you can take Dragon Boots as the Neatsnot doesn't reduce your magic bonus like the Rune Helm does, so you'd gain a defense advantage in having that. I'd also highly recommend whatever Ava's backpack you have, and just these few extra stats and items makes burrows a lot more survivable and quite a bit quicker. My medium recommendations bump melee up to a 70 stat line. This gives you access to burrows armor. You should replace the Darox plate body with a Torag's plate body. I just didn't have a Torag's one in my bank, but they have the same stats and Torag's is much cheaper. Virax Top is an option that gives more prayer, but it doesn't make up for the reduced defensive stats that it provides. If you have a defender, it will increase your kill times quite a bit in the tunnels, and along with the Dragon Dagger, it can hit Kirill quite hard. Even though the Ivan Staff can out-damage your whip here, the Dragon Dagger specs can get you out ahead in melee. So if you don't want to swap during the fight, I'd actually recommend using melee here over magic if you do have a special attack weapon. Also, as I've said before, just be wary you stay above -30 magic attack if you're upgrading or downgrading gear. Lastly is just an example of high level gear. This is going to differ greatly from person to person, as some people may go for Armadil, some people may go for Ancestral, and so on. But basically, you want to have a few swaps for each style to make it as quick as possible. Melee will only out DPS magic on Kirill if you hit really high with a spec weapon such as a BGS or Dragon Dagger, or if you just hit once with a Dragon Warhammer. In your pouch, you can keep teleports to burrows if you have the level for them. Some people take ice spells, but if you have 85 plus magic and 75 plus prayer, it's very unlikely you're going to use a dose of prayer potion unless you're required to in the tunnels for the last brother, so they'd just be a waste. If you have these stats, I'd recommend learning Zulrah as well. I covered it in my previous video, but you can make consistent profit and 3 times as much per hour than Burrows. So give that video a look if you're currently able to use this setup. Now, some of you may be thinking, what about the Black Salamander? I've actually calculated the stats and the equipment on using the Black Salamander, and it's much slower than the normal strategies. It is much simpler to use, and maybe if you're totally cleaned and you need a complete budget strategy, then you could consider it, but I wouldn't otherwise. Now, let's look at how we get there. There's actually quite a few ways to get there, the best being the Burrows teleport with the Arceus spellbook, or the Burrows teleport tab. If you're a normal player, there's absolutely no reason not to use these. The tabs may cost around 3k each, but the time saved is worth considerably more than any other teleport. Even the Berg de Rott teleport and running there. For those who are Iron Men, by the way, you'll have to walk from Canifis using the Merik, or Meriku, let's just say Merik, if possible. The Fairy Rings, which are either BKR or BIP with 50 agility, or the Berg de Rott teleport with the hard Morty diaries complete, or lastly, the Shades of Morton teleport once every 30 minutes. It's in the minigame tab, but you do have to finish the quest to use that one. Once again, unless you're an Iron Man, use the Burrows teleport tabs, as they will be just making you lots more money and saving more time. It's just the best thing to use. Once you're there, it's time to take on the Burrows brothers. I'd recommend killing them in the following order: Darok, Virak, Kirill, Arim, Guthan, and lastly Torag. This is based on the highest priority to pray against to the lowest. Because if you're a higher level, you don't want to use any prayer doses if you can, and if you do, you want to use them on the harder Burrows brothers rather than the weak ones. And as a low level, you may run out of prayer and die if you're leaving Darok or Kirill to last, as they do the highest DPS. If you plan on using prayer against all brothers, I would still worry about the order, as if you run out of prayer, Torag and Guthan aren't going to do much to you, while Kirill or Darok can one-bang you. They're located under 6 mounds. They are as follows. In the northeast mound, we have Darok. He's melee, his attack is increased by missing HP. This means at 1 HP, he can hit a 64 on you. You need to pray melee against him 100% of the time, as one hit can completely end your run, and if you're a hardcore Iron Man, can just kill you outright. Darok is very weak to magic, so even with a low magic bonus, you'll be killing him quite quickly regardless. At negative 30 magic bonus, there isn't actually that much DPS difference between having that and 0 magic bonus. Moving on to the northwest mound, we have Virak. His melee attacks have a chance to hit through your armor and prayer with a max hit of 15 if you're praying melee. This is advised because he can hit you quite often and hard. Virak also has weak magic defense, so he's best defeated with magic. Next is the southern mound, which contains Kirill. His range attacks hit quite rapidly, accurately, and up to 20 each. They also have a chance to reduce your agility level regardless of whether you have your prayer on or not. You'll need to have prayer on for this fight, as he can quickly whittle down your health even with a high defense level. As I mentioned in the equipment section, he is actually weak to magic as well, so he can be dispatched with mage or melee. At lower levels, mage will probably be doing more DPS with the Iban staff. As a low level, if you don't have an Iban staff, it'll probably be better to use melee against him. After that, we'll kill Arim in the central mound. His magic attacks can reduce your strength by 5 levels. He also uses debuff spells to reduce your attack, defense, and strength as well. He hits quite accurately, so I'd recommend to keep Protect from Mage on during the fight. At a lower level, if you haven't got your range up yet, you can use your melee to kill him, but ideally you'll use ranged once you've hit 40, probably you'll need 50. His debuffs will hit through your prayer, so after fighting him, you may need to use a restore dose just to get your stats back. Lastly, we have Guthan in the southeast and Torag in the southwest. These brothers are both melee and neither of them are much of a threat. Guthan has a chance to heal off his attacks, while Torag has a chance to lower your run energy by 20% of its current value. Scary, I know. They're both inaccurate as well, but they can hit a 23 or a 24, so if you're a low level, you'll still have to pray against these, but as you level up, you can just let them hit you and eat 1 or 2 food, as it will cost less than the prayer dose. Much like Darok and Virak, they're very weak to magic and you can kill them quite easily. Now, to actually do the Burrows minigame, you'll dig with a spade on top of each mound. Once inside each tomb, you'll have your prayer drained approximately every 20 seconds. One of the brothers' heads will pop up to show you when that's happening. When you search each brother's sarcophagus, they'll appear and attack you. After killing each brother, use the staircase to leave the tomb. This resets the prayer drain, which means if you kill a brother in under 20 seconds, you won't have your prayer drained at all. Because of this, I'd advise you to prepare your gear and prayers before you drop down into each tomb, so you drain the least amount of prayer possible. One random brother each time will not appear when you search their sarcophagus, and instead you'll be prompted to enter the crypts. Skip this and leave it until you've killed all of the other brothers. Then come back and enter the crypts. Once you've entered the crypt, you'll find yourself in a series of rooms and tunnels. From where you've entered, you'll need to find your way to the center of the crypt and get your kill rewards to 100% to get the maximum out of your reward chest. There are fake doors throughout the crypts, determined by the options given to you when you right-click them. If they do not have the option to open, you will not be able to pass through them. The room you enter in and the room that leads to the center room will have 3 fake doors. 3 of the rooms adjacent to the center room will also have fake doors connecting them. This means the room you enter in may be adjacent to the room leading to the center, but you'll actually have to go all the way around the entire tunnels to get to it. The RuneLite plugin has an option to see these doors without actually clicking on them, making it considerably easier too. Each time you pass through a door, you'll spawn a random minion with a chance of spawning any Burrows brothers you haven't killed yet. Sometimes you'll have to be careful as Kirill or Darok can both kill you very quickly after spawning and you don't have that much time to react. Once you've worked out your pathway, you'll need to kill monsters on the way, so when you get to the chest, you're about 90% of the reward. Once opening the chest at the center, the last brother will appear, assuming you haven't killed him already in the tunnels. And once you've killed him, you'll be at 100%. To get into the last room, you'll have to solve a random puzzle. Here are the solutions to each. The best way to solve the puzzle really quickly is to pull the monster that's aggroed on you onto the other side of the room, and then quickly after it attacks, run back to the puzzle side and do the puzzle real quick. Because if you get attacked while solving the puzzle, it'll interrupt you and you'll have to try again. At this point, you can either make your way back the way you came to the entrance and climb up. You'll take periodic damage from the crypts falling in around you, or you can teleport out. Here, I definitely recommend using the Ring of Dueling, going to Clan Wars, and then using the Clan Wars teleport to heal. If you have an ornate pool or are using a house party world, you can just use that instead. Teleporting is much faster and uses way fewer resources than walking back up, so I'd recommend doing that if possible. Here are some general tips that will help you, especially if you're a lower level. When using the dual ring, you can either right click and hold down the 3 button to teleport, or equip it and then right click and select Clan Wars. This prevents you from being interrupted by falling debris or enemies attacking you. With the lower magic levels, it's definitely a benefit to unequip your negative magic bonus gear while using prayer, so that you can increase your DPS. Just taking off the rune plate body can increase your DPS for lower levels by 20 to 30%. Whilst in the tunnels, opening the doors can spawn the remaining brother or brothers. This means you can end up spawning 2 Burrows brothers in a row from 2 separate doors and end up taking 2 big hits, so just be careful. Now, as a lower level player, you can use safe spots to avoid damage from melee brothers in both the tombs and the crypt. To safe spot in tombs, you will have to trap them on the other side of the sarcophagus by running to the side that they're not on. Then you'll have to disable your run, and then you attack the Burrows brother and use the control key to automatically turn on run to go to the other side of the coffin. I'd recommend not using this against Darok, as one mistake can mean death, but every other melee brother it's viable against. You'll notice when you climb down the sarcophagus into the crypt, there'll be a ladder to get back up. If you spawn a brother by opening a door in this room, you can run to the other side of this ladder, trapping him there, and you can safely attack him without even moving. As this minigame is old, they had different ways of programming back then. The ladders that you use to climb down into the random corner of the crypts are just invisible and unusable when it's not in the corner you came in on. So every time you enter the crypt, there'll actually be 3 invisible ladders in each of the corners that you didn't come into the crypt on. And you can use these invisible ladders to safe spot them just as if there was a ladder there. You can spam open doors to spawn that last brother so you don't have to fight him in the chest room, and you can safe spot him in the corner rooms if he's melee. I'm not going to explain the maths here as it's on wiki in great detail and very self-explanatory, but if you keep under 87% of the total reward, you'll cut out bolt racks as a drop. This means you'll be earning more each trip. It also cuts out dragon medium helms and key halves, but the extra you'll be making on the runes is worth much more. If you're wanting to use a snare on the melee brothers, you'll be able to attack them the following amount of times before having to reuse the snare. Be careful, because one mistake can end up with you taking a big hit, and you won't always land the snare, so just be a little bit careful with that kind of stuff. So that's all for this video. If you have any more questions, just let me know. I always respond in game, and I always respond on Discord, so just give me a shout and I'll try and help you out. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.